Notre Dame is the only program in the country where the athletes have a higher graduation rate than the general student body, but it's by like 1/10 of a point. Depending on the year, it's like 98.2% versus 98.1%. But the majority of, and it's especially big-time college programs. And you know, we should be clear here early on in this interview. I'm primarily talking about men's basketball and men's football because those are the money-generating sports. Those are the sports that pay for everything else. They pay for lacrosse, women's field hockey, golf, all the other sports that really don't generate any positive revenue. So to go back to your question, the graduation rates for a lot of these teams, like Kentucky's like 31%. Bob Huggins, who I mentioned, who was the coach at Cincinnati for a long time, went to Kansas State for a year. Now he's at West Virginia. He got kicked out of Cincinnati basically by this woman, Nancy Zimpher, who was the president at the time. The graduation rate for his basketball team was 0%.
Wow.
And a lot of times we see these kids coming in, they have what they call now the one and done rule. The NBA created this rule that said, okay, we're not going to recruit kids directly out of high school. We want them to go for 1 year to college. Bob Knight, who is not the most academically rigorous coach, he's there to win. He's one of these big name coaches that it's win, win, win. He thinks the one and done is the worst thing to ever happen to college basketball because he says, listen, it really, all it does is make these kids come to college for a year. They don't have any intention of ever graduating. If they're just there for a year, they don't have to worry about their NCAA eligibility because they have the whole year to go through. Right. And then when they get to June and they have D's and F's and C's, it doesn't matter because they're going to apply for the NBA draft. And so it's really, that's the most recent development that people are really critical of. Now, I also should say in reference to the one and done, a lot of people think that the NFL is more altruistic because they have a 3-year requirement. You have to be out of high school for 3 years before you can be eligible for the NFL draft. That has nothing to do with altruism or the idea that the NFL thinks everyone should go to college and get a degree. It actually has to do with putting weight on. Most NFL today, I mean, these linemen are 320, 350 pounds, very fast. The running backs now are 240, 250. This isn't about going to school. It's about putting meat on your bones. The average high school kid, no matter how good he is, a Jimmy Clausen or anyone like that, they could not go directly from high school to college or to the pros and compete today. The game is much faster. It's a much bigger learning curve from college football to the NFL. And quite frankly, the linemen, even the guys that come out of high school who are 270, 280, they've got to go and spend 4 years in the weight room and really put a lot of meat and mass on their bones to be able to even survive in the NFL today. So the NFL shouldn't get a pass on its 3-year requirement.
And to your point, if I'm correct, the NFL has no college requirement. They just have to be out of high school for 3 years.
Correct. So you could go and play in the NFL Europe,
purposes.
Or you could go play, well, there used to be the Canadian Football League, but so you could go play there or arena. So yeah, it doesn't say you have to go to college. It says you have to be 3 years out of high school. But let's be honest, a lot of these places like Nebraska, Penn State, Texas, they're training grounds for the NFL. That's really all they are. A lot of these kids, they end up, at end of 4 years with 60 or 70 credits in a bunch of cake courses, oftentimes in departments that are specifically crafted to coddle athletes. And they had no intention of graduating in the first place. They were just there to play football, put weight on, and declare for the draft.
So do you agree with Bob Knight on the one and done rule?
I do. I think it just exacerbates the problem. I would much rather see the NBA, they did this with LeBron James. He never went to college. Right. He was this phenom that came out of high school, and he went right to the NBA.
Kobe Bryant.
And Kobe Bryant. And, I would rather see these kids, it would be much more honest if they were talented enough to come out of high school and went to the NBA, or they went to this NBA Development League, which they're starting. It hasn't really caught on yet. It's not as popular as the NBA, but I think it's really a step towards honesty, that it's a place for these kids to go and do nothing but play basketball and not participate in the charade that they're student athletes, because they're nothing of the kind.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.